like stretching, but I don't want to stretch on the camera. I mean, like, just being on the plane since I woke up at 5 this morning and, like, sleeping on the plane was, like, before that, my name is Sarah Crosby. I'm a second-year master's student in the classics department. Nice to see you all, and I'll be facilitating tonight. So we'll hear from our first speaker. He's going to introduce himself, and then they'll get started.
Hi, my name is John Cabot. I'm a third-year physics PhD student here at Washington University, and I'll be talking a little bit about the history of our organization. Hi
everyone, I am Matt Abel. I'm a second year anthropology student here at Washington University, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of activism at Washington University and how where we're going to fix into that.
Hello everyone, I'm Michael Marino. I'm a second year education major at America. I'll be talking about our organizing efforts on campus.
And I'm Patricia Bath, and from WUGWU University, where I'm a fourth year art history student, and I'll be talking about our boot camp. Yeah. Hi, I'm Meredith Hill. I'm in the third year of the English program at WSU, and I'm going to be talking about our duty to improve the Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
In August 2016, under President Obama, the federal body that oversees labor law, the National Labor Relations Board, determined under the Columbia decision that graduate employees have the right to form legally recognized unions. Beginning fall 2016, graduate workers here at Washington University began organizing. In early November 2016, Trump was elected, and the status of our ability to organize was put in jeopardy by the possibility of overturning Columbia under a new NLRB. In spring 2017, our right to organize remained intact. It appeared that if we moved quickly, we had a window of time to form our union and bargain contracts. We moved forward organizing graduate workers in arts and science. We continued organizing over summer and filed for election in fall 2017. In response, the administration hired expensive anti-labor law firms, Proskauer Rose and Ogletree Deacons. In their anti-union campaign, the administration took a two-pronged approach of fear-mongering and binding us with red tape. The fear-mongering tactics included baseless conjecture about the union interfering with our relationships with our advisors and about us having to negotiate our work conditions up from nothing with the possibility of getting less than what we started with. Worst of all, they had the audacity to implicitly and explicitly threaten international graduate workers. On the legal side, they attempted to contest our ability to organize and delayed us at every turn with the hope that the Trump administration would overturn the Columbia decision before we had an election and could bargain a contract. Let me be clear on this point. The university administration was relying on President Trump to undo an Obama-era decision intent to strip us of our right to organize.
Yeah, boo!
In response to these tactics taken by the administration, we took action. We held a graduate worker rally where we marched across campus to Brookings and demanded neutrality from the administration. We also secured an article in The Nation outlining the story of our organization and the loathsome tactics taken by the administration to keep us from winning our election. After we spent enormous amounts of time and energy in a labor hearing where the administration tried to claim that our labor did not benefit the university,
Yeah, that's funny.
the NLRB sided with the graduate workers and called for an election. In response, the administration appealed the decision to the National Board, vowing to us that they would continue to use their resources to thwart our ability to organize. They then created a list of eligible voters that excluded large swaths of graduate workers, including master's students who hold the same TA and RA positions as PhD students, students in the IMSC program, and random supporters for no discernible reason other than that they didn't want them voting. This even included members of our very own organizing committee. Then the election happened. An incomplete list leads to indeterminate results. That is, there are more challenge ballots than the margin between yes and no votes. Because of our careful organizing and get-out-the-vote efforts leading up to the election, we were confident that we had enough challenge votes that were yes to barely swing the election in our favor. However, at this point, we were faced with a choice. Moving forward with the election meant a labor hearing to determine the status of the challenge ballots. Over 100 students corresponding to the same number of challenge ballots would have to be carefully examined and argued over to determine whether their votes would count or not. This process would include summoning students to testify in court. All of this would require a large amount of time and resources. This meant finding the university where they feel most at home, the courtroom. Additionally, even if we did successfully argue that the correct ballots be counted and won our union, the university would continue to delay us by refusing to recognize us or negotiate with us. Our choice was to either continue fighting the university on their home turf or fight them on ours. We chose ours. We chose direct action. Thus, the Washington University Graduate Workers Union was formed as an associate union with SEIU with the mission to utilize direct action to pressure the university to meet our demands.
Yeah, thank you, John.
First of all, thank you all so much for coming out here tonight and being here and for all the work that you guys have done for the program effort so far. And also thank you to all my fellow panelists for being here as well. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the history of student activism and specifically how it relates to the unionization effort at Washington University. And I guess after the election, I think one of the things that the university seemed to continuously be saying was that there was actually no precedent for what we were trying to do here, that this was sort of outrageous to try to form graduate workers into a union body. And so I became curious as to whether or not there was precedent for that. So I prepared a little thing, so I'm going to read it as I kind of think, so it's like eye contact, everyone's on. So the long 60s tend to occupy sort of the mythological space, both in our national consciousness and our own university's history here at Washington. And as some of the older faculty might inform you with a sort of wistful look in their eye, Washington University used to be a hotbed of political activism in the Midwest. And in 1965, the Students for a Democratic Society, they founded a chapter at Washington, organizing protests against the Vietnam War and instituting a free university that ran parallel to normal courses. And after the assault of a black student on campus in December of 1968 by campus police, the Washington Association of Black Collegians organized a 9-day sit-in in Brookings Quad. In response, hundreds of student activists associated with SDS occupied the chancellor's office, Holmes Lounge, and also crashed a faculty meeting were probably the most interesting faculty meetings that I ever had to watch. They moved to Graham Chapel in order to accommodate the massive students who were in attendance. And over the following 4 years, students organized a number of demonstrations and strikes, including strikes in solidarity with the General Electric Workers Union, in demand for changes to the university's fundamental structure. Some undergraduates and faculty are aware of the sort of legendary burning down of the ROTC building in 1970 by college activists, and then again in 1971 was sort of a symbolic high watermark for the degree of mobilization there was on campus. This history of activism remains, I think, fairly unknown to graduate students, and from the perspective of administrators, I think this seems to serve a functional purpose of some sort. In 1968, both undergraduate and graduate students organized to elect activists to what was then called the Student Assembly, a representative body that had very little actual power over university affairs. And when they took over the Student Assembly, they declared themselves a union. Ben Zarcourt, the student president, wrote in 1969 that we intend to act as a student union, and he said our relationship to the Board of Trustees will be through collective bargaining. And that's a quote. Through direct actions and organized strikes, this union pushed for a set of demands, almost all of which continue to ring true today. They demanded representation on the WashU Board of Trustees, arguing that students, faculty, and staff should be guaranteed at least a 50% say in all university decisions. They demanded divestment of the endowment from military corporations, Dow Chemical and Monsanto, which are continue to be invested in. As early as 1968, students demanded divestment from the South African apartheid regime. They demanded, in solidarity with the Black Position Paper, the institution of the Black Studies program at the university and to change racist elements of the existing curriculum. They demanded that the university get 1/4 of its incoming class from lower-income families. And they worked with faculty to construct what was called a bicameral agreement, which ensures student representation at university governing bodies like today's graduate professional council. And crucially, they demanded that all students should be guaranteed free medical care provided by the university. They also organized on a department level, creating department-level cell unions that sought to create direct participation in department affairs. Graduate students were particularly crucial to this process, and 2 students in particular responded to claims made by the administration regarding student participation in university affairs. They said, quote, spreading access will not solve the problem of the university. The vague language utilized to define the character of the student role is not the same as some form of shared control or authority over institutional policy. What they sought, what these students sought, was control over the institutional environments in which they worked and learned, which I think is not unfamiliar to what a lot of us want here today. For those of us who have just weathered 3 semesters of obstructionism from WashU's administration to undermine our right to organize a union, threatening international students, this institutional history seems a bit difficult to imagine. In response to our campaign last semester, the administration was able to repeat the mantra that the unionization of graduate students would fundamentally alter our relationship with the university. As with the many graduate student unions throughout the country have somehow destroyed higher education. This statement was, of course, predicated on the notion that this had never happened before in the university's history, that the institutional bodies that are currently available to us are sufficient somehow to assure that the interests of graduate workers, students, staff, and faculty are heard. And so regardless of what strategies or missteps that the 1960s generation of activists took, I think that this history really reveals the university's statement as just completely blatantly counterfactual. By coming together as graduate workers to the new relationship of shared control over institutional policy, what we have done over the past 2 semesters here at WashU has precedent. It has precedent at our own university. And moreover, if we stare out at the institutional landscape of WashU, we can see that many of the existing representational bodies on campus were not simply granted, but were won. The 2 positions on the Board of Trustees occupied by graduate representatives were not handed over out of goodwill. They were fought for by activist organizations who frame themselves in ways that are incredibly familiar to us now. Even organizing bodies like the GSS and the GPC have roots in the bicameral agreement that was fought for and not passively received by student activists who conceptualized their relationship to the university as one of shared governance. So just to kind of conclude my little spiel, I think that Vince Zarker, the president of the student union in 1969, he quotes William Morris in the State of the Union address, a quote that I think kind of seems pretty apt to define the current juncture that we're in today. He said that people fight and lose the battle, and the things that they fight for come about in spite of their defeat. And when it comes, turns out it's not what they meant. And then other people have to come and have to fight for what they meant under another name. So I think that's kind of what we're going to continue to do going forward.
Again, Michael. I'm here to talk about Merriman, the community college, and our organizing efforts today. I got involved at the beginning of the last semester because I wanted to get involved. I was looking for issues, I was looking for friction, I was looking for tension, and I found it in spades. Last semester, we dealt with the RIF. With the firing of, I think, what was the total? Say there was 200 total. 220 some odd professors, staff, and assorted faculty that were needlessly fired. And then also we started with our adjunct union in there, and the adjuncts that they represent to win any kind of agreement from our administration. They've been negotiating for 2 years when I got involved, at least. And so I met some of the SAID reps at an SSAC meeting. The students are faculty on campus. We got to talking, and it started off very modest. I did just basically canvassing on campus. I went around with the clipboard, getting people's names and maybe emails, and talking to them about adjuncts mostly, and how they were treated, the respect that they deserved, the money that they deserved, and how that picture and how the adjunct issue affected them as students and us as a community, which I'm trying to make a reminder of us here, that whole story. But we went from canvassing to what got the rally, from the rally after we still felt like once we had felt comfortable demonstrating that the students were involved, students cared, we got nothing really on the negotiating table. We stepped it up to a campout. We pitched tents in the quad, and that was very cool, but extremely informative. Because in addition to sleeping there, we just sit there and stay there and only left to go to class. And I talked to anybody who get a lot of questions when you're sitting in school with a tent. Why are there tents here? For one, but I would say there are tents here because our adjuncts deserve better than poverty wages. That sparked some really good conversations. And after 4 days of that and talking to the students and the fact, frankly too, because they're not always informed either about the issues, we broke camp and we went to the October Board of Trustees meeting to let the trustees know that we felt that there was a pattern of disrespect being aimed at our teachers. And at this meeting, as some of you know, a lot of us watched one of our professors, Professor Steve Taylor, get body slammed by an SELCC cop, and that was, I don't want to say traumatic, but that was really disturbing, and galvanizing too in a lot of ways. And so, after coming to the board with this message that please, here's the pattern of disrespect that we feel, and we would like allies and not obstacles in overcoming that pattern of disrespect. To see that kind of exclamation point put on that was very visceral and very clarifying for where we stood. And so from there, we knew that we definitely had to escalate. We definitely had to do something more. And so we marched through our campus, and that was actually pretty awesome because I've never been involved in any kind of social action or direct action before, and that was the first time I'd ever marched or chanted for anything. And we delivered our provost a report card intended for the Chancellor Pittman, which failed him on everything except for putting buildings over people, which he got an A+. And so from there, we went back to the board himself, and we got, with SEIU's help, we demonstrated outside of the board meeting. We shouted out the megaphones. And at that point, we really started to gather strength with other students who were organizing around WIT. And that's when you really started to see the whole campus start to at least talk about something was happening, because everyone knew that a bunch of teachers were going to get fired, and you didn't have to be very politically involved, and you didn't have to be very aware or energized to care about your teachers, and to care that they were just not going to have, not only were you not going to be able to interact with them or have this meaningful relationship with them anymore, but they were going to have to go find a new job with all the stress related with that. And so that gave us, in a crisis, an opportunity. And we organized a very dedicated, very courageous group of students to shut down the November 30th Board of Trustees meeting, at which they voted to fire 200 of the people who made our education possible. We chanted, shouted, screamed, whatever you want to call it, for an hour and a half. They voted anyway, but the victory, we think, is here. It's this, is now. Is that we're talking like, you guys, I'm here, and I would not be if we hadn't done that. If we hadn't not stood up, I guess, if we were laying down, but if we hadn't taken a metaphorical stand for ourselves. And since then, not only have we met wonderful, supportive groups like y'all, we've met so many different, awesome community members and community groups that have stood up and said, yes, this is important, and we will fight with you, and we will fight for you. And we believe that's because we stood up and we said, we'll fight for you. Like, this is a community battle, this is a community college. And it serves a very critical role that, again, I don't think I need to go into why it's so important. But it is more than the corporate philosophy of our administrators want to make it out to be, and it has a mission other than to hollow itself out and become a remote learning center where we can, take students from wherever. It doesn't matter, because it's basically just a piercing lab as a teacher. But yeah, so I just want you guys to know, frankly, that you are the victory. This is the victory, and that we do feel that organizing, networking, create, like I said, that we can help you with your struggles on your campus, and that you can help us with our struggles on our campus, because we see this as a common fight for not just the financial health of any given educational institution, but the existential health of education as a mission in this country. And I think it's important, while we fight for the money and resources that we need to make it happen, that we make sure that we keep the mission of education in mind of the community. Thank you.
So again, I'm Patricia from WUGWU University here in North Carolina. Thank you to the three young men who heard us spoken. I'm going to say mostly the same thing. Just like Dawn?
Yeah.
Yes. Alright. Practice me. I'm going to talk about the history. I'm going to speak to the chronology of how unionization happened on this campus. For graduate students, it's really similar to how it happened at WashU, but we are like 6 months further in the chronology than you guys are, so maybe that could be helpful. Very fascinating to hear about the history of activism at WashU. Also, and I think your last quote, and I can't remember your name. Oh. Had a great quote about how it's always the same fun, very different name. And that's kind of what it is at Duke and the South and here. And I don't know what you consider Missouri is very complicated. Yeah. What? Alright, yeah. And to agree with this is the victory. The victory around minority elections, and the victory is the fact that we are organizing. We've seen some success in that, which I will speak to now. So, how it happened at Duke is that in my department, which is the Art History and Visual Studies department, we have been organizing around tuition fees for at least the last 5 or 6 years. And I'm not sure why it's the Art History Visual Studies department. We're not the most radical department. We are the most likely to have small children though, or to have dependents. So it might be that. We've been organizing around the fact that there's $7,000 a year fee that is launched upon people who are fifth year or above in the PhD program and who don't have income. And that's really hard for people to take on, especially parents. And of course, this group of people who cared about this, weren't getting traction from administration, this might ring bells. And then people were listening to us, we were meeting one-on-one with deans. We were trying to contact everyone we knew who was nice to us, and it didn't work. And because of that, in the summer of 2016, we, with other students, started a unionization campaign, and since SEIU had already unionized our adjunct and contingent faculty, also maybe ringing a bell, since this also happened at FSU, we decided to go with SEIU, who helped us to a union campaign for grad workers at Duke. So, that fall, as it seems like happened maybe in a similar way here, and for you also, we ran around with clipboards, but mostly sat at tables in one place. Your students are lazy. And we sit at tables around campus and talk to people about why building a union of grad students is important. We one-on-one everyone we knew, strained our friendships, talked to people we don't really like, we visited people at their houses, which is fascinating because then you learn where other grad students live. A lot of them live in really pointy time. And we did all of that, and Duke was not nice about it. Our university was a huge asshole. And Professor Josh was the same, which comes us at every step. So first, Duke was like, you guys aren't workers, right? It challenged the Columbia decision. And that's what WashU did, right? Yeah. Yeah. So they told us that we weren't workers, and they had the same lawyers that y'all got, Sarah Rose. Do you know how much they're paid per hour?
A lot.
They're paid a lot per hour. It's disgusting. If you see them in court, they're disgusting, mean people. It's unpleasant to watch them speak. They're rude. They're mean. And they went into court and they talked to the SEIU, you know. Basically, they challenged our status as workers. They lost. Then they challenged our bargaining unit, like they did for years. They weeded out all of the people that really need the union the most. So, PhD students or theology PhD students to make half as much as humanities PhD students. They weeded out the master's students. They whittled down the bargaining unit until it was almost nothing. We battled through. Then there was an election in February of 2017. And they contested a ton of ballots. And we didn't win. And everyone was really sad. And we all went out to a bar afterwards. All of our SEIU organizers. We had a really good time. We even stronger at the end because we were so disappointed. And we decided to make a minority union. And it sounds like that's the track that you guys are on, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, great. And our minority union is really great. Minority secretly, not secretly, it's like staying there now. I'm really glad that we're minority unions. We have a lot of freedom to organize the way that we want to organize.
Yeah.
We don't have to wait on the NLRB to do everything that we do. We don't also, no offense to you, have to have the SEIU lawyer to vet every single email that we communicate. And that means that we're really efficient.
we also don't have the right to do contract negotiations. So we're not using all of our time to create committees to talk about contracts and trying to get all of the grad students on our side to negotiate contracts with us, which is a legal process that takes years and years. Like our contingent faculty know because they've been in contract negotiations for, I think they just ended and it was like a year and a half of contract negotiations. It's really long and you can't do other things. All of your attention is in that and it's kind of demotivating. So I'm happy to be a minority human. We don't have legal power, but we tell all of our subjects into direct actions and like having support for one another. And through that, we've had some successes, and that's really exciting. Like these tuition fees that I was talking about, $7,000 a year. We have been, like, once the administration was under threat of us actually unionizing, once there was a body that was called with the new graduate student union that was angry and was public and writing op-eds and doing actions, they suddenly, so nicely of them, decided that six-year students didn't have to pay tuition anymore. Also, we did some public actions and wrote more op-eds and created petitions around the fact that PhD students in their third through fifth year no longer have access to the gym. Surprisingly, the administration came on that one too. Like an email being like, hey, because we care. Because we care, we're getting this done. So, I'm really excited for y'all.
Yeah.
It's a really great moment. And if anyone wants to talk to me about how things are going with our graduate student campaign, like union thing after,
Yeah. Thank you.
Can you guys hear me? I'm gonna hold this a little bit away because I'm real pregnant and breathy and it gets weird, so I'll just try to yell and hear this. I want to start with a really simple question, kind of reversing how our university looks at us. What does it look like when we make it more possible for different kinds of people to study, perform academic work? And what transformations in our intellectual output can occur? What if instead of our administration thinking of us as a problem, one that they have to make allowances for, like things for people with disabilities, or people with specific physical and mental health care coverage needs, people with childcare needs, people with economic challenges to face. Instead of thinking of us as a problem, they regarded it as part of the educational and intellectual mission here at WashU to make sure that the work done at WashU included the voices of those who've not always had a seat at the table. And this is sort of what Matt alluded to earlier, but we know that a lot of the kinds of things we can study today that exist in the university are here not because people waited around for an administration to produce them, but because younger generations of scholars, undergraduates even, demanded that those things be put in place. So I'm talking right now about like the history of Black studies and Chicano studies in the 60s. Students literally conducted sit-ins to get their schools to acknowledge these as critical areas of academic study, and now the critical work being done in this field is essential to shaping good work and good methodology throughout other disciplines. And it was implemented through collective action, and that's how it worked. And it wasn't anyone waiting around for a president to say, you know, we should have Chicano studies at this university. We're only white now on the board. Your personal joy, personal amount of years to experience this great privilege of retreat from the real world into a world of books, and a world of lab equipment. This is all rooted in the university's history of being a place only open to straight, white, European Christian men, right? This is this idea that just personal life has no place in the university comes from the fact that it absolutely never had to until incredibly recently in the history of universities. The ease with which scholars throughout history have been able to be in their professions without giving any consideration to all of the labor, the people who do their laundry, the people who their kids, who clean their houses, who cook food, all of that work done to support their work is something that we really need to pay attention to, and that's really important.
That's right.
Diversified university is that we don't leave behind those questions about labor, we bring them in, right? This if the university is truly diverse economically, with respect to nationality, with respect to race, in terms of gender and sexual orientation, in terms of everything, if we're letting everybody in, then that hard edge between the personal life and the academic life starts to fray because it does not exist, right? It's not there. It is far too easy to tell a graduate student, well, if you're arguing for better compensation, for childcare, for whatever, then maybe this isn't the right place for you. I've heard it before. We've all heard it before. It's been far too easy for them, people with power in this university, our administrators, to shame us into silence. But when we let them silence us, it's really important to consider what we're doing. I'm saying that when we let them deny us our chance to significantly contribute to the university's greater intellectual mission, I read that wrong. I'm saying that when that happens, when they let us silence us, we're denying ourselves the ability to contribute to the university to affect change. I'm saying that we have a chance to offer the university something better, and that we have to make them realize that through collective action. As graduate student workers who know better than to conform to those notions of professional standards and behavior, that the onus is on us to shape the university into what it needs to be for its students, for its workers, and as a model of higher education, serving an entire community rather than the billionaires who run it behind the velvet curtain. Model has zero incentive to see us, to protect us, to permit us to comport our lives with dignity as we deserve to do, having contributed significantly to this university. It has zero economic incentive to do that. And this is why we built WUGWU, using the building blocks of collective action. It's such a cute name. Consistent public support of higher ed labor rights and public criticism of the administrative bodies that stand in our way. As WUGWU, we do more than advocate for graduate students. With your input, we have, on the bargaining surveys, right? We have a set of measurable goals for graduate student workers, and we will fight to achieve those concrete goals. The university to do things it will never do otherwise. As a graduate student worker body, we comprise a generation of thinkers and doers who know that our work is worth something, not just as our paycheck, but as a benefit to the institution of higher learning. We have come together here to fight not just for adequate compensation for our work, but to protect the mission of the university as an academic institution, to open its ranks, to see what can be possible when we truly include and protect everyone who works and studies here. And let's be very clear about one thing. It is only in our numbers and in our collective actions that our work is adequately represented to the university. It is what we have, but it is incredibly powerful. Direct action is powerful. Talking about our issues with colleagues, building a critical mass of support, showing up to actions, directly addressing the administrators who shape our lives. It is only through that work of openly and consistently questioning the university's attempts to silence our movement that we can apply real pressure upon our administration and turn the tide on this intense corporatization of the university. And we have so much to build on already. This energy has been mounting for well over a year now. It did not stop when we withdrew our petition. It did not stop on December 31st, 2017. And it cannot stop after we leave here today.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
Tonight, we're getting real answers from all of us on those surveys on what we need to see change here at WashU. So if you haven't completed a survey, please do it before you leave. It's an essential piece of making sure that your concerns as a worker and a scholar here are represented. It's literally the building blocks of what we're saying. And second, finally, this is it's almost Valentine's Day, which, as everyone in our village there knows, it's the perfect time to tell your toxic partner how much they're hurting you. So, our next action is going to be on that theme. It's a little tongue-in-cheek, but we're going to write Valentine's to members of the WUGWU administration and drop them off at workers on February 14th. We would love for you guys to commit to writing a Valentine or helping us plan an event where people can stop by and write their own. There's some easy homes going out in the mailer. So we can commit to writing a Valentine to their toxic boyfriend, the WUGWU administration. Okay? Yeah, or yes, just whatever, that was rejected, but yeah, toxic partner. Exactly. Thank you. So thank you for your support, try to retain that energy because it is vital to us. Be public, be here, check in with us as much as you can. We love you.
Yeah. All right, everyone, thank you so much for listening. At this time, we're going to open this up to questions that you have. A quick note on that, I encourage you to keep your questions brief. That being said, if you have a long question, we have organizing committee members here today. If you remember the OC guys here, yeah, there are a lot of us here today. So if you have a longer question that you think warrants a sit down or a comment after this event, you are welcome to approach any of us who have raised our hands or any of the panelists once we've kind of dispersed. So when you ask a question, I ask that you say first your name and your department and your institution, and then second, who you're directing your question to give them a second to kind of reorient themselves, and then third, say the question. All right. At this time, if you have a question, I'll come to you with the microphone to say it. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Charlie Herrick. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Missouri St. Louis in the Political Science Department, and I had a question for the representative from Duke. You mentioned the fifth-year tuition, fifth year and beyond tuition costs. You mentioned $7,000. I was wondering if they forced how many hours were the students having to pay for out of tuition? Did you just have to pay for 1 hour and there was equivalency hours, or did you have to pay for full-time, all 9 hours to stay full-time? Just curious how that process worked.
So, we resist the word tuition at Duke, which is like a political, like us, I'm talking like us, PhD plus grad workers. We resist the word tuition because, especially once you're like, and I said fifth year and beyond, but it's actually sixth year and beyond that you're charged tuition. We call them continuation fees because tuition is covered through your fifth year because you've got your stipend, and Duke does some funny money stuff where it's like, oh, you've got this huge tuition bill, look, we're so nice, we cover it. And they're basically just switching money between two of their own bank accounts, and it's confusing, we don't want to know. Then you're in your sixth year, and they're like, look, we don't cover tuition anymore. You are chain smoking in your house, writing a dissertation, you are not using school resources, you're not taking courses, maybe you're teaching, but you're not, maybe, if you are lucky, your research supervisor will meet with you once a month. And that is the resource you can use. And you're charged $3,600 or $700 per semester to remain enrolled in Duke University. And you must remain enrolled consecutively until you complete your dissertation, or else that's it. Yeah. So that's the way it is. And we've done a comparison, and if anyone would like data, we did a lot of surveying PhD students at other universities, notably like top fancy universities, because that's what our administration cares about, to prove that $7,000 a year to remain enrolled when all you are doing is miserably writing the book alone, very little social or educational support is absurd. So yeah, that's what it is.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Next, who's got another question?
Hi, I'm Andrew Hutchinson. I'm a first-year MSW student at the Brown School. This isn't really to anyone specifically, but what can Brown School students do to assist and join?
Students.
So the model we've been using so far has really been department level. And so is Brown School broken up into different departments, or is it?
So we have masters, this is Aaron, we're, I think, unless there's someone hiding, the only Brown School students here. Awesome. There's like a couple social work people. There you go. But most of us are masters. And that's
Public health and social work, all of it is Brown School.
So there's like,
And public policy.
yeah, and policy. So there's like 240 of us in each class over out 2 years, unless you're going to get dual and then we're broken up into concentration areas. We all take the same classes semester 1 and 2, but 3 and 4 we all split up.
So I think that I mean, I'll try to answer this as best as I can, but I'll start by saying one of the great advantages of forming the union the way we are now is that while we were trying to gain a contract with the university, it really had to be people who were TAing for the university or MTing, as they say now. So what?
And arts and science.
And arts and sciences. So DVBS, other folks were left out of the bargaining agreement. So now what this means is that we can actually start expanding into departments and areas of the university that are also interested in joining our organization. So that's not necessarily a how-to, but that's just a yes, like absolutely. And what we worked on to build support was really just having one-on-one conversations with colleagues, trying to see if they would be interested in supporting. So I don't know if you folks have any more to say about that.
Yeah, basically, if you're interested in starting support in Brown School, then I would recommend talking to, I mean, we're OC members, but talk to OC members and talk to some of the organizers, like SEIU, organizers, to basically get set up. Like I said, we typically do things by department where there's like one department representative who helps organize a department, and then they have students in the department that they work with that help, like I said, do like one-on-one conversations with people in your department. So basically just talk to us, talk to organizers, they'll get you set up, and then you'll be able to start working on organizing your department. But so yeah, there's like no more restrictions. Like I said, we started organizing in arts and science, but the election didn't work out the way we wanted it to, so here we are, and that gives us the freedom to organize in every department.
Thank you. Who's next? All right, I have a quick question, rapid fire round, panelists. Say one thing that you're looking forward, one change you're looking forward to. 5 seconds now.
Better health insurance, because our health insurance sucks.
Yeah.
Dental, because I've never had a cavity in my life, but I grind my teeth like crazy now, and it's only a matter of time.
I really want to see our governor get owned.
We have a pay campaign in our union. One of the working groups is a pay campaign. So like having a moving stipend so that you get like a one-time bonus when you move to start your program. But also, and I think really importantly, our pay cycle starts in October, which means that when you start your program, you're just broke for 2 months. And like, I'm really looking forward to that being today.
Yeah.
For those of us with dependents on our health care, we have to pay a non-refundable yearly premium at the beginning of the year, which sucks. So I would really like to see that go away and just be like a normal healthcare situation for all of you.
Before we wrap up, a few announcements. Andrew back there has a petition for raising the minimum wage and getting money out of politics, things we can relate to. So go ahead and sign that. Additionally, as Meredith said, our next action will be around Valentine's Day. Look out for us, we'll be in orange. And we'll be collecting Valentine's Day cards to give to administrators, stating what we want and what we wanted, which is now. Additionally, I encourage you to use the trash bags and not the trash cans. Small comment. All right. I'd like to say thank you for a few people. The organizers organizers back in the corner who've done finance and human rights class. Please remember to turn in your survey to them if you have not done so yet. You can still get a free drink if you have done so. Additionally, I'd like to thank everyone back here who's been helping with food and drink. They are unionized employees. Finally, I'd like to thank all of you for coming out tonight. We really appreciate your support. We appreciate your input in those surveys. So please turn those in. Thank you all for coming. Thanks again. Additionally, talk to anyone on the OC who's wearing this really bright orange. If you have any questions, that includes me and all of these panelists. Have a great rest of your night. Please come hang out and go with us. But thank you all for coming, and thanks again to our panelists for speaking.
And just to be clear, you can sit around like on our towel. You don't have to leave right now.